Good morning everyone. In this video we will be discussing regarding the concept of basic concepts of OOP. This is the 6th chapter of your syllabus. In this particular chapter we will be discussing regarding what are the basic concepts of OOP. OOP stands for Object Oriented Programming. In this particular chapter we will be having the characteristics of OOP. Before discussing the characteristics of OOP, we need to know one more basic concept that is used in OOP, that is called as modularity. Modularity in the sense, a larger problem will be divided into smaller number of parts so that it will be easy to solve the problem, which is called as modularity. Suppose, let us consider the example, you want to add 10 numbers. So, whenever you want to add 10 numbers, the general procedure we follow is, we'll add the first number with the second number, and whatever the result that is obtained is added to the third number. And likewise, we are doing this addition of 10 numbers like this. We are adding the third number with the fourth number, the result is again added to the fifth number, again the result is added to the sixth number, so on. So here the larger problem of adding the 10 number is divided into smaller number of parts, which is known as modularity. Now coming to the basic topics, that is, what are the characteristics of object oriented programming. So there are around 9 characteristics of OOP, that is objects, classes, data abstraction, data encapsulation, inheritance, overloading, polymorphism, dynamic binding and message passing. Now let us discuss these characteristics one by one. Now coming to the first characteristic, that is called as objects. Objects are the basic building blocks for designing programs. An object is a collection of data members and associated member functions. So in OOP what happens is, we are considering everything as an object. Let us consider an example of mobile phone. So a mobile phone is considered as an object. So what happens is, a mobile phone is having certain data members as well as the member functions. Now let us see what are the data members that are associated with the mobile phone. Now whenever you are purchasing any mobile phone, you will be seeing at the specifications of the mobile phone, that is, the mobile is having a screen of 6.5 inches. A mobile is having 20 megapixel of camera. A mobile is having 4500 mAh of battery. A mobile is having a price of 19,000 rupees. So these are all the properties of the mobile phone. So these properties can be considered as the data members. Now coming to the next thing, that is called as the member functions. What are the member functions? In the sense, the functions which you can perform with the mobile phone. So if you have a mobile phone, you can perform various functions, like you can make a call, you can receive a call, you can send a text message, you can send a WhatsApp message, you can send a pic, you can send a music video, something like that. So these are all the functions that are associated with the mobile phone. So an object will be consisting of both the data members and the member functions. Data members is in the sense, the properties of the object will be considered as the data members. The functions we can perform with the object is considered as the member functions. So this is regarding the concept of the object. The next characteristic of OOP is called as a class. Now, a class is the way of grouping similar objects. A class is a way of grouping similar objects, or else the grouping of the objects with similar characteristics is considered as a class. Now, if you consider the example, there are a variety of mobile phones that are available in the market. It can be a Motorola, it can be a Redmi, it can be a Vivo, it can be a Oppo, it can be an Apple. So, all these together, it might be a Oppo, it might be a Vivo, it might be a Nokia, or else it might be an Apple. All these will be considered as an mobile, because all these mobiles are having some similar characteristics or properties. So, all the mobile phones are having some similar properties. All these mobile phones can be grouped together as a class. So, what is the definition of the class? In the sense, a class is a way of grouping similar objects, or else a class is a way of grouping objects which is having the similar characteristics or properties. Now, let us consider another one example. You have a Brezza car, you have an Alto car, you have an Fortuner, and you have a Pulsar. So, Pulsar is a bike. So, here we have 4 examples, that is Brezza, Alto, Fortuner and Pulsar. Here what you are doing is, we are grouping Brezza, Alto and Fortuner into a group. Why? Because all these are considered as a car, whereas Pulsar cannot be considered as a car. So, Pulsar does not belong to the car group. So, here what you are doing is, we are grouping the objects of similar kind, which is called as a class. So, all these together, that is Brezza, Alto and Fortuner, can be grouped together as a class which is called as a car. Now, let us go to the next characteristic of object-oriented programming, that is called as data abstraction. The data abstraction permits the user to use the object without knowing its internal working. That is, what the data abstraction does is, it will hide the background details of an object. Now, let us consider an example of a mobile phone. On a mobile phone, what you can do is, you can send a message and you can send a WhatsApp message also, or else you can make a phone call. Here we are concerned, what we are concerned is, whenever I am making a phone call, the person on the other side should be able to receive the call. Whatever I am speaking, it should be hearable or audible to the person on the other side. But we are not concerned how exactly my voice message is getting delivered to the person on the other side. Here, the internal working or else the background details of how my voice is getting transferred to the person on the other side is hidden. This particular concept is called as data abstraction. What the data abstraction does is, it will give the user only the essential details, but it will hide the background functionalities, which is called as data abstraction. Now, let us go to the next characteristics of object-oriented programming, that is called as data encapsulation. So, encapsulation is nothing but binding together. Encapsulating is nothing but binding together. So, every object is having two properties. One is the data members and another thing is called as the member functions. Here, in data encapsulation, what happens is, the data members and the member functions, both of them are binded together into a single unit, which is called as data encapsulation. Now, if you consider an example of a capsule, so you would have seen the capsules. that is available in the medical store. What the capsule will be doing is, outside the capsule you will be having a protective covering, something which will be made up of some kind of material. What it does is, it will hold all the medicine things together, whatever the chemicals that is available, that will be held together by using that protective cover. So which is called as the data encapsulation. What the data encapsulation does is, it will bind the data member and the member function into a single unit, which is called as data encapsulation. The next characteristic of object oriented programming is called as inheritance. Inheritance is nothing but deriving of a new class from an already existing class. Deriving of a new class from an already existing class is called as inheritance. Here what happens is, there are two different kinds of classes. One is called as the subclass and another thing is called as a superclass. So let us consider an example. You want to find the sum of two numbers. So whenever you want to find the sum of two numbers, what you will do is, you will write a formula, that is z is equal to a plus b. Now I want to find the sum of three numbers. What I will do is, I will write another formula, that is called as z is equal to a plus b plus c. If you consider both these formulas, the second formula is derived from the first formula, because the first formula is already having the expression, that is z is equal to a plus b. The second formula is having an expression that is equal to z is equal to a plus b plus c. Now here what you are doing is, you are deriving the second formula from the first formula. So the first formula becomes the superclass and the second formula becomes the subclass. So inheritance is nothing but the way of deriving a new class from an already existing class. Now if you consider another example, general example, in the sense, a son will be inheriting the properties of the father, that is whatever the properties that is earned by the father will be inherited to the son. Okay, so this can be considered as an example for the inheritance. So in inheritance you'll be coming across two different kinds of classes, that is called as a subclass and then the superclass. So the already existing class is called as a superclass. The class from which you are deriving a new class is called as a subclass. The next characteristic of object oriented programming is called as overloading. So what the overloading does is, it will allow the objects to have different meanings depending upon the context. That is, one object can have more than one meaning. That is called as overloading. Now let us consider an example. You want to add two numbers. So let us consider an example. We are adding two numbers. Let us consider two numbers, that is 2 and 3. So if you are adding 2 and 3, the result will be 5. Now let us go to the next example, that is you are adding three numbers. Let us consider three different numbers, that is 2, 3 and 4. So if you are adding 2, 3 and 4, the result will be equal to 9. In this particular case, the example 1 as well as the example 2 both are called as addition only, but in the first case you are adding only two numbers, in the second case you are adding three numbers. Even though you are calling both the processes as addition, the number of inputs you are taking is different. So this can be called as overloading. In overloading, you will be coming across two different kinds of overloading. One is called as the function overloading and the second one is called as the operator overloading. So let us see what exactly is the function overloading. Function overloading in the sense two or more functions having the same name but different arguments is called as function overloading. Let us consider the same example. Here two functions are also called as addition, but in the first case we are taking only two numbers, but in the second case we are taking three numbers. These can be considered as arguments. So two functions are called as addition, but in the first case the number of arguments is 2. In the second case the number of arguments is 3, which can be considered as a function overloading. Now let us go to the next kind of overloading, that is called as the operator overloading. Operator overloading in the sense a single operator can have more than one meaning. A single operator can be having more than one meaning, which is called as the operator overloading. Now let us consider the example of dot. Okay, so this dot can be used in English as well as it can be used in the mathematics. If it is used in the English language, it is considered as full stop. If it is used in the mathematics, it can be considered as a decimal point. So in both the cases the operator is dot, but in English it is considered as full stop, whereas in mathematics it is considered as the decimal point. So which is called as operator overloading. Operator overloading in the sense an operator can have two or more meanings, which can be considered as the operator overloading.